Bangsawan was one of the new cultural forms that emerged with the development of an urban multi-ethnic population in Malaya in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As it was urban popular theatre, Bangsawan had to be commercial and innovative. It incorporated stories and music of various ethnic origins to attract audiences. On a stage where heroes and heroines were stars, Rahman B was born. He grew up following his father's troupe, Rahman's Star Opera, which was named after him. This was an age of untold elegance and glamour, of cabaret and nights of joget dancing. Shakespearean plots, Arabian myths, and tales from the Malay annals were performed on the stage by actors who improvised and mesmerized through drama, dance, and music. This was the golden age of Bangsawan. Today, Rahman B teaches at the National Arts Academy in Kuala Lumpur.
Although I no longer act, I teach new students the way of acting in Bangsawan. I'm able to discuss theory and share practical experience with them. At least there will be new talent to continue the form. Otherwise, it would be extinct.
The students of the academy are in the process of learning the craft of Bangsawan from a legend. Today, the streamlining of national culture and censorship of non-Malay stories has produced a different kind of Bangsawan. Bangsawan had begun to lose its soul. For Rahman B, the purity of the form is gone. Bangsawan literally means of the aristocratic class, the term referring to plays about royalty. It is believed that Bangsawan was first performed in Malaya in the 1870s as an adaptation of the Parsi theatre from India, which toured Malaya. By the turn of the 20th century, Bangsawan had become the local popular theatre in Malaya and reached its peak in the 1920s and 1930s. Rahman B was introduced to the stage at the age of 3 months.
As a baby, I was cradled to sleep on stage by my mother. So I grew up on the stage. Directors started casting me as a child actor by the time I was a year old.
Child stars were a novelty, and many grew up on the stage. It was also an opportunity for village children to leave a life of poverty and hardship. For many, Bangsawan was an option which held the promise of stardom and fame.
If we expressed interest in acting, we were first assigned the role of the sword bearer. That required perseverance and patience. We had to remain still until the curtain came down. Even if mosquitoes bit us, we had to be still. That was the rule. From there, directors would observe and test our acting and singing abilities. They tested us stage by stage before we were even offered the third principal role. This coffee shop was popular among Bangsawan stars from the 60s onwards. This coffee shop was frequented by joget dance girls and Bangsawan actors. This was where we mingled, chatted, exchanged stories, and had discussions.
As it was commercial theatre, Bangsawan did not depict its performers as mere actors and actresses. They were stars. They were full-time performers who had the capacity to draw in large crowds. In the 1930s, some of these stars were earning as much as £40 a week. It was the stars who established a company's reputation. The Seri Panggung or heroine and Orang Muda or hero were the key members to the troupe.
Orang muda ni dia punya kelebihan.
The Orang Muda or
Dia tidak
hero
berapa lawa,
was not
tapi
necessarily
bila kena
dashing,
bedak, dia cantik
but with a
lah.
makeover he could be transformed.
Pakaian, dia boleh menyanyi lagu-lagu Melayu.
He could usually sing in Malay, Arabic, and even serenade in opera, amongst others.
Macam lagu dia boleh menyanyi. Dan dia minat
The audience was also attracted to a beautiful Seri Panggung or heroine who could sing and dance. The important stars were controlled by the owners of the troupe.
Diorang boleh duduk dalam pentas.
The actors were provided with meals backstage.
Diorang kalau nak keluar pun belah malam.
They were only allowed to go out late at night, when nobody was around, or when Bangsawan was not performed. They could do their shopping. They were disciplined.
Places like Lucky World Park and Bukit Bintang Park were sites of urban popular entertainment in Kuala Lumpur, where Bangsawan was performed on most nights.
Before, the first thing you saw when you entered Lucky World Park was the gambling area.
Kita akan berjumpa dengan tempat permainan judi. Di kiri kanan dan di
It was
belakang
surrounded by gambling
banyaklah
dens.
tempat-tempat perjudian. Selepas itu kita
Further back
saja ke tempat
was the
judi,
Joget dance hall.
Kita dapat satu panggung joget. Dan di sebelah sana
On the other side, there were food stalls, behind which was a Bangsawan
di sebelah
stage.
belakangnya itu pula ada satu panggung bangsawan dulu. Panggung bangsawan dan di
In that
sebelah
direction,
sana
there was a cinema hall.
ada panggung wayang gambar. Navy datang report
The Navy, police, and soldiers all gathered here to seek entertainment,
Semua bertumpu di tempat ini cari hiburan.
either to gamble, to dance joget, or to watch Bangsawan.
Menonton bangsawan. Yang jadi kenangan Pak Man tu.
The memory I have is of violent outbreaks and of people fleeing a fight scene.
Lagi keluar. Jadi kadang-kadang
Sometimes, when there were people fighting, we didn't want to get involved, but we watched anyway. I remember an occasion when there were even people fighting in a ditch. On weekends, Lucky World was famous for its rowdy brawls.
Troops took Bangsawan to the major town centres and rural districts in Malaya and Sumatra. Some of the bigger troops toured as far as Burma, Thailand and Java.
Kalau diikutkan zaman gemilang, memang hari ini
We will never be able to match the golden age of Bangsawan.
memang tak boleh dapat. Sebab dulu bangsawan
Before, when important Bangsawan troops went on tour, they used up to 12 lorries to transport equipment.
sampai 12 lori barang-barang dia.
Bangsawan was popularised through the mass media like newspapers, radio and gramophone records. Leaflets with information about performances were also distributed in towns.
Acting can never be compared to what it used to be.
Lakonan hari ini
Today, the acting does not captivate the
tidak
audience.
menghayati lakonan. Sebab pelakon-pelakon dulu dia
Before, actors truly internalized their roles and were able to convince the audience.
supaya penonton boleh terima.
If the heroine
Kalau
was
Seri
reduced to
Panggung
tears,
pukul menangis,
the audience would cry as well.
penonton akan menangis. Kalau kisah
In the story of
anak
Radin
ini,
Mas, for instance,
macam Radin Mas katakan.
The audience would curse when the heroine's stepmother smashed a plate on her head.
Orang penonton di bawah menyumpah.
The audience would be aggravated to the point of cursing the evil stepmother even after the performance ended. Today, we have yet to find an audience that is convinced by the emotions of the actors. This is because scripts were never used in the old days. Then, actors were spontaneous and convincing.
Before a new play was performed, the director would call the cast together, plot specific scenes and conflicts, and then assign characters.
For instance, this is what a royal official might have said if he came across a group of gamblers.
Cis, katanya. Ya? Cis. Sama sendiri simpang perenang. Rasa begini bolehkah menang? Kepada musuh sedang bertunang. Dengar kamu sekalian. Ini megat alang di laut. Gagahnya tidak lagi dikesahkan oleh orang-orang istana. Megat alang di laut nama terbilang, sedikit tidak menaruh bimbang. Di lautan Bintang menjadi jemalang, megat alang di laut nama terbilang.
Today, the play is scripted and students now learn lines and gestures. Gone are the days of improvisation and spontaneous poetry. There are specific movements, gestures, and different ways of speaking. All of this depends on the setting and context of the play.
Bersabarlah, Adinda. Seberapa segera puteri kesayangan kita akan pulang ke istana.
Bangsawan was the first theatre form in Malaya to use the proscenium stage, which separated the performers from the audience who sat in seats, much like our modern-day stages.
Paman ingat lagi, Paman mula-mula dia bawa dari Kelang. Masa tu umur 2 bulan.
It was on this stage, at this old town hall, that I was first brought into Bangsawan when I was 2 months old.
Paman lama dengan arwah bapa masa kecil.
This was where I spent a lot of time with my father. Even when I started acting, it was on this stage.
Anak raja kecil-kecil yang baru lahir lah umpamanya pun di sini juga. Jadi bila masuk hari ini,
I'm still sad from seeing the condition that it is in now. It used to be a grand stage, and it was very well built.
Dia rendah sikit di depan.
Daulat tuanku.
Daulat tuanku.
Daulat tuanku.
Supaya Puteri Beta kembali semula ke Perak, Megat.
Mainang,
Tuanku,
bawalah Permaisuri Beta berehat seketika.
terjunjung titah, Tuan.
A typical performance featured a full-length play or 3 or 4 shorter plays.
Kalau semikian,
These plays revolved around the lives and loves of fairy tale kings and queens, such as Jula Juli Bintang 3 and Puteri Bakawali.
Dan persaudaraan kita patut terlepas gala-bala.
In between scenes, you have this extra turn dances, and it's kind of like an entertainment for the audience while waiting for people to set up the props backstage. So it kind of bring on new talents to the stage, like dancing, singing, and comic acts.
Tentu seminggu tak boleh kita makan.
Bawa pulang ke istana. Hei!
Selamat!
Bolehlah dipandang, hey, tak boleh dipegang. Adik, kakak serta abang, kami menghibur dengan riang. Teranglah bulan, hey, teranglah benderang. Tuan-tuan silalah datang melihat kami panggung Bangsawan.
Bangsawan was extremely responsive to audience preferences. The latest dances like the tango, blues, Charleston, quickstep, foxtrot, waltz and rumba were performed during the extra turns.
The extra turn dancers imitated, for instance, the style of the Roaring Twenties. We copied the style of dressing. But we adapted it slightly, like wearing jeans to conceal bare flesh. Or we used to wear stockings under knee-length gowns. It could not be too revealing.
Spectacular scenes and stage tricks were created to grab the audience's attention.
We devised ways of executing tricks, such as smoke effects, shooting stars, secret trapdoors, and disappearance acts. We invented ways.
For example, this lightning and thunder sequence is an innovation of the older version of the same effect. As Bangsawan was commercial theatre, it had to cater to as wide an audience as possible.
Kadang-kadang, Pak Man sendiri pernah terlibat.
I remember how we used to peep into Chinese shows that were performed.
Cerita Cina, kita main. Wayang Cina,
The Chinese opera troops would lend us their costumes.
Kami pakai. Dia ajar
They taught
macam
us
mana.
Chinese prayer rituals,
Nak
and
sembahyang,
we performed them on stage.
Kita buat.
Bangsawan began to decline after the Japanese occupation of Malaya in 1942. During this period, many troops were shut down.
The Japanese took over many Bangsawan troops
Bangsawan ni
and performed
dijadikan
propaganda
bangsawan
plays.
propaganda. Wayang propaganda.
Japanese stories were performed about how Japanese soldiers would capture and torture people.
Tangkap orang, pukul orang. Itulah cerita dia.
Performers also carried Japanese flags and sang Japanese songs.
The return of peace after the war did not see the revival of Bangsawan. There was a new enemy: film.
Tengahan atau
Towards
akhir
the end of the
60,
60s,
apabila
Bangsawan actors moved
anak-anak
over to
wayang
film and
sudah
TV.
banyak ke filem, ke TV,
That was when
Bangsawan dah
Bangsawan
mula
started to fade out.
hilang. Sebab di filem diorang
Actors
dapat
were getting
bayaran
better
lebih.
salaries as film studio actors,
Kerja
and
pun
life
tak
wasn't that
susah.
hard.
Macam di TV pun begitu
It was the
juga.
same in TV.
Bayaran
Better pay,
bagus.
less work.
Tak penat, tak susah. Bangsawan ni
Life was
kadang-kadang
always harder in
penat lah.
Bangsawan.
Ya. Bayaran tak berapa. Jadi banyak
With this
lari ke
exodus
sana,
of actors,
itu mula
film
orang sudah
became
minat filem.
popular.
Padahal macam
Most of
di
the film
Shaw
actors
Brothers dulu pun
were from
banyak
Bangsawan.
pelakon-pelakon Bangsawan. Filem ni Pak Man tak berapa berminat.
I was not too interested in film because, in my opinion,
Pada Pak Man,
I don't look good in film.
Pak Man tak cantik dalam filem. Ya. Sebab ya Pak Man perhatikan orang-orang yang macam Pak Man lah.
I feel
main
people
filem
like me are too short.
terlalu rendah.
His rehearsals at the academy have been completed. Rahman B is leaving for his pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. His wife has just died and he is grieving her death. he had hoped to make this journey with her. His students will take the stage without him. He has the utmost confidence that they will be able to stage this production called Bendahara Garang Perak without him.
From my experience, Rahman B is a dedicated teacher. He taught us step by step the way of becoming a bangsawan actor. He taught us the protocol in the palace, speech and intonation, as well as characterization.
Aku memakai sifat Bintang. Tenagaku bagai besi kasar. Gagahku bagai saidina aku. Hai!
He isn't someone who holds back his knowledge. He taught us generously. I feel he couldn't teach us everything because of the time constraints of the course.
By the early 70s, most Bangsawan troupes had ceased to exist. Sporadic performances were staged. Although government support was given, emphasis was on the Malayization of stories. Government intervention meant that non-Malay stories were not preferred, as this was not in line with the new cultural policy. Bangsawan lost its creativity, flexibility, and adaptability. The Bangsawan today seems sterile, artificial. Rahman B is still remembered as a purist, a true exponent of the Bangsawan.
There have been many sweet and bitter experiences from performing Bangsawan. Yet I can't discard them because I was brought up in Bangsawan. These are memories I will continue to cherish, and I will always uphold the name of Bangsawan.
He is a keeper of his past. His collection of artifacts, costumes, weaponry, craft and stories are what he brings to us, together with memories from a vibrant, glamorous phase of Malaysian history.